So there are some new people here that haven't been to a Toastmaster meeting before, and I mentioned that I walked into Poway Black Mountain Toastmasters 20 years ago. And the reason I walked in, not sure what I was getting into, I want to talk a little bit tonight about how it was that I found myself getting out of my sofa seat and coming on down to a meeting for the first time. And how that happened was a friend of mine. And this friend of mine taught me to look beyond what I could see and to reach beyond my grasp. And he did it with his nose pressed up against the glass. I met my friend when I was 5 or 6 years old at a carnival with my dad in the midway with the cotton candy and the popcorn and the carnival games. And I was a pretty uncoordinated kid, so obviously I tried to win one of those overpriced stuffed animals and didn't do very well. And my dad was getting probably a little bit concerned that he was spending all of his money on my hapless attempts to win something. But off in the corner, I saw a mountain of goldfish bowls. And each one of those bowls had a little goldfish in it. And back then, when you would throw ping pong balls, they would be in these little round bowls. And I was agog because I knew I was going to win something there. It looked too easy because I saw kids walking away with goldfish. And I said, well, Dad, please, can we just go one more time, one more game, and then we can go. And I walked up to that booth with all those goldfish. I thought, I can do this. And the man inside the booth said, 3 bowls for a quarter, kid. Okay, you mean all I have to do is throw one of those balls into one of those bowls and win one of those fish? I'm in. And it only took 1 ball. My 20th ball, I think it was. And it fell into a bowl with one of the best looking goldfishes you'd ever seen. It had a gold head and a white body, and it was looking all happy swimming around. And then the man inside the booth reached into a bucket and pulled out a plastic bag and said, here you go, kid. It wasn't that goldfish. It was the scrawniest looking orange comet goldfish you'd ever seen with a concave stomach. But it really didn't matter to me because it was mine. I said, oh, I'm going to take you home and I'm going to call you Johnny. So I took Johnny home and I put him in an empty bowl that we had. I knew that it was underneath the sink. And I put Johnny in the bowl and I stuck him on my dresser and I looked at him. He was bumping up against the glass looking at me. I said, this is your new home, Johnny. How do you like it? And Johnny said, I don't want to be in here. Now some of you are thinking, okay, talking goldfish, I don't know. But I think it ran in my family because, well, my brother had a monster that lived under his bed, and my little sister, she had tea parties with invisible Mrs. Witherspoon, so I imagine talking goldfish, no big deal. But I felt for poor Johnny because he said, I don't want to be in here. So I thought, well, you gotta be in here. I know you have to stay in water because I know what would happen if I took you out of the bowl. I saw what my brother did with his goldfish. And that's why we had an empty bowl underneath the sink. So I said, I'm going to make it nice for you, Johnny. So I put in some of my marbles from my marble bag. And there's Johnny trying to keep from getting clobbered by a marble. How do you like it now, Johnny? I don't want to be in here. So I took some of my sister's jacks. I took one of those, the race car from my Monopoly set, and I stuck that in there. There was hardly any room for him to swim anymore. How's that, Johnny? You like it now? I don't want to be in here. Well, time went on. Johnny didn't look happy. Every time he would see me, he'd tell me he didn't want to be in there. And I told my mom and I told my dad, Johnny doesn't like it in his bowl. So for my birthday, they got me an aquarium. A nice little aquarium with colorful sand and plastic plants and that little diver guy with the bubbles. I thought, he's got to be happy now. How do you like it now, Johnny, your new home? And Johnny said, I don't want to be in here. About that time, my dad was building a pond in the backyard, a really fancy Japanese pond. He had those Japanese carp called koi in there, and he had lily pads and water hyacinths, and he was out there working around cleaning the weeds and things, and he knew about me and my relationship with Johnny. And he said, you know, boy, he called me boy, goldfish can live 20 years when live in a happy place. And yes, my dad did sound like Mr. Miyagi from The Karate Kid. I thought, oh, but I gotta keep him in my room. I have to keep him where I can see him. I have to keep him safe. I told my brother, and my brother said, Dad just doesn't want to clean your tank anymore. But it felt so bad when Johnny would say, I don't want to be in here. That I finally went, and I took him, put him in his little bowl, and I walked out to the pond. And I let him go in the pond. And at first, he looked around, he swam underneath the pads and looked around at the other fancy fish in there, and he looked happy. And my dad was right. Johnny flourished in that pond environment. Over the years, he grew to 3 or 4 times his length. His fins were flowing and maybe as long as his body. His beauty rivaled any of those fancy fish. And as Johnny grew, so did I. And as I grew, I thought, how silly of me to have a talking fish. And I realized, if Johnny's talking, it's coming from here. It's coming from my own brain. So if Johnny's words are my words, why am I struggling with wanting to keep him safe, but wanting to be out at the same time? Johnny lived 15 years in that pond. But even after he was gone, he continued to live here. And I know he did, because it became no more apparent than when I was a parent and took my daughter to the carnival and spent $20 on her 20-cent fish. And that night, in that pickle jar with her new pet, nose to nose with that fish, I thought back to Johnny. And my struggles with wanting to keep Johnny confined in his container, and also wanting to be free. I thought about my daughter and how I wanted to keep her safe and comfortable, but at the same time knowing that I had to let her go and be free to grow like Johnny did. Because over the years, the same thing happened to me whenever I was confronted with a new experience where I was uncertain of the future. I would struggle with wanting to stay exactly where I was and wanting to go out and experience the new things. So I tried to keep myself in my own little bowl, but instead of putting marbles and toys and Monopoly pieces in my bowl, I filled my bowl with excuses and doubts. Well, you should wait till you graduate school. You should wait till you have a family. You should wait till you have more money. You're not smart enough. What if I fail? But fortunately for me, Johnny's voice was strong. And when I was smart enough to listen and brave enough to act, then those uncertainties could become possibilities. And the dreams could become reality. Because, ladies and gentlemen, we all live in a fishbowl of our own design. But unlike Johnny, we could escape that fishbowl whenever we want. And whenever we allow ourselves to leave the comfort of our fishbowl then our beauty will know no bounds. And we can ensure that all of our tomorrows will be better than our todays. So when you find yourself with your nose up against the glass, wondering what's out there for you, don't fill your life with doubts and excuses. Listen to the Johnny in you and look beyond what you can see and reach beyond your grasp and grow into your life's possibilities. Mr. Toastmaster.